जय गोपीचन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदनंदन व्रज जनरंजन तीरा वनचारि यमतीरा वनचारि जय राम माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राग माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा शील प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा शील प्रभुपदा जय ओम विश्वपाद परमहंस प्रत्यक्ष अष्टोत्तर सदस्य श्रीमती स्वयं प्रदेश भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन संस्थापक शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रत्यक्ष अष्टोत्तर सदस्य श्रीमती स्वयं भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद शिलकुर किशोर दास पाद महाराज की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद सच्चिदानंद शिल भक्ति विष्णु ठाकुरा की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास पाद महाराज की जय। जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जी गोपाल भट्टदास गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। नमाचार्य दास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से को श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर्धन की जय। श्री मायापुर धाम की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। श्री हरनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद भागवतम की जय। इस्कॉन गुरुवंद की जय। समाविद भक्तिवंद की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled lords. All glories to the assembled lords. All glories to the assembled lords. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Shri Prabhupada की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वती व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अपत्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके bhaktir naishtihi. Hare Krishna. So welcome you all to the Friday morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 14, text number 42. Nangasya Vamsho Rajarsher Esa Samstatum Arhati Amogabirya Hidripa Vamshesmin Keshavasrayaha Nangasya Vamsho Rajarsher Esa Samstatum Arhati Amogabirya Hidripa Vamshesmin Keshavasrayaha Nangasya Vamsho Rajarsher Esa Samstatum Amogabirya Hindripa Vamsesmin Keshava Shrayaha. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The sages decided that the descendants of the family of the saintly king Anga should not be stopped, for in this family the semen was very powerful and the children were prone to become devotees of the Lord. Purport Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The purity of hereditary succession is called Amogabirya. The pious seminal succession in the twice-born families of the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas especially, as well as in the families of Vaishyas also, must be kept very pure by the observation of the purificatory process, beginning with Garbhadana Samskara, which is observed before conceiving a child. Unless this purificatory process is strictly observed, especially by the Brahmanas, the family descendants become impure and gradually sinful activities become visible in the family. Maharaja Anga was very pure because of the purification of semen in the family of Maharaja Dhruva. However, his semen became contaminated in association with his wife Sunita, who happened to be the daughter of death personified. Because of this polluted semen, King Vena was produced. This was a catastrophe in the family of Dhruva Maharaj. All the saintly persons and sages considered this point and they decided to take action in this matter as described in the following verses. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Vena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutales Swayambhupakada Mahim Tadati Swapadadikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Udapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sjivam Satvaitam Savadutam Pariyana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanushte Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakakalpatarubhyasya Kripasindhubhyavcha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Moham Karodi Vachalam Pankam Langayati Kirmatapata Muhammad Deshi Kurun Biradana Paramanta Matvam Shri Chaitanya Vishwaram. Namo Vishpada Krishna Prasad Krishna Bhaktivedanta Swami Name Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Anupachal Nirvishya Krishna. Hare Krishna. So we see in this verse mentions about the Garbhadana Samskara and how by a proper union one can have a good progeny, but with improper union there can be a disturbance in the progeny. Some examples we discussed today. So it's mentioned that the sages first decided that the descendants of the family of King Anga should not be stopped, because in this family the semen was very powerful and children were bound to become prone to become great devotees of the Lord. So the point is that in this dynasty there were great kings like Dhruva Maharaj. Of course, King Anga was also a great devotee, but unfortunately by the arrangement of the Lord, because the Lord wanted him to practice self-realization and wanted to become detached from the worldly affairs, the Lord made an arrangement whereby he married Sunita who was the daughter of Mrityu or death. So from their union was born King Vena. King Vena was very, very cruel right from his birth. A point came when he stopped the sacrifices of the Brahmanas and he wanted himself to be worshipped and all worship the Supreme Lord to be stopped. That is when the sages realized that he should be killed and they killed him. So now here from this onward, we'll see how the next progeny continues. The point is that the seminal succession, in particularly in the twice-born families like Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, are also uh, required to be very, very pure by the uh, purificatory processes, beginning from Garbhadana Samskara, which is observed before conceiving a child. There are totally about 10 samskaras, and it starts with Garbhadana Samskara even before the uh, start of the process of union between the man and woman. And this is performed by qualified Brahmanas to create a proper mindset uh, on in both the husband and wife before they join together. That part of it we'll understand today. So Anga was also a great devotee of the Lord. So that is why it is said that the seminal quality was very pure because it has got a lot of the whole parampara right from Dhruva Maharaj onwards. They were all great devotees of the Lord. But somehow, due to the Lord's arrangement, King Vena was born as a cruel son. So the point is two things. One is the parampara coming from Dhruva Maharaj. And second thing is that the importance of Garbhadana Samskara, at least at the higher classes like Brahmana, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. There are different classes of marriages mentioned uh, in Srimad Bhagavatam. Uh, for example, Brahmanas have different qualities. Kshatriyas have different qualities. Brahmanas' qualities are endowed with more to do with intelligence. The Kshatriyas are endowed with more to do with physical power, whereas the Vaishyas are endowed with qualities to develop agriculture, do business, and so forth. So each one has got their own qualities and characteristics. So for marriage also, it is recommended that a Brahmana should marry a Brahmana, a Kshatriya should marry a Kshatriya, Vaishya should marry a Vaishya. Sudra, of course, there are no qualities, and so they will marry Shudras only. However, within Bhagavatam also there is description that a Brahmana can marry a Brahmana man can marry a Kshatriya woman, but a Brahmana woman cannot marry a Kshatriya man. So these are all incompatible situations. But sometimes for higher purposes, time, place, and circumstance, different things are arranged by the Lord Himself. So in religious life also, we see that uh, people have different perceptions. Somebody may be wanting to have become, they may be coming from background of devotees of the Lord. Some may be very casual in terms of religious likes. There are so many sub-religious castes and communities, and some may want to do that for the sake of convenience, for the purpose of showing to the outside world that I'm a religious person. There are many like that. So if one has such desires, the Lord makes arrangement for them to take birth in families with such backgrounds. So we see sometimes even those who are born in Brahminical background, they Brahmanas are not supposed to work outside for money. But the next generation of Brahmanas, we find that you won't find any Brahmana priest. It's very rare these days. And over a period of time, we'll see that they are extinct. This is because the Brahmanas next generation, they think uh, IT is all in all and making money is all in all. So they go and work in IT companies, and anybody who does such a job is considered a Shudra. So that is why they are called Brahma Bandhus. Similarly, the Kshat Bandhus who are born in Kshatriya background, but they are not performing the duty of Kshatriya, they may be performing the duty of a Shudra. So there are Brahma Bandhus, Kshat Bandhus, and so forth. If you see the classification within the world itself now, with the previous background, India was generally considered a society which is based on religious practices, whereas the Western world and European world were mostly based on Kshatriya principles. So they have a strong army. They're very strong in their equipments and well advanced in material technologies and so forth. But India is not meant to do that. India is supposed to be good in religious background. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has quoted that those who are born in India should be very fortunate because they have the opportunity not only to take up religious practices on their own, and what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted that every person born in India should preach the glories of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada, in fact, appeared to spread the glories of Lord Krishna throughout the globe. So this is how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that uh, the Indians should be considered very fortunate. But because we don't understand that concept, we are trying to follow them, trying to uh, uh, engage ourselves in defense warfare and so forth. Of course, some minimum protection is required, but priority for us is to spread religious principles to everywhere. So for that, there are various purificatory processes, and it starts with Garbhadana Samskar. So we have discussed about marriage. So marriages are also to be undertaken in compatible backgrounds. That is why in the years they used to match the horoscopes, uh, then consider a suitable time. They used to consult an astrologer, fix a suitable time and place for marriage. Marriages were never done in inauspicious months or inauspicious periods. Similarly, the union of the man and a woman is a very sacred act, and it is supposed to be done in a manner which is so. Uh, These are the classifications. Also, there is a mention in Srimad Bhagavatam that even when the Lord was present, there were many demons, and some demons are also being given birth in Brahmana family so that they can get rid of the demoniac propensities. For example, when Srila Prabhupada went to the Western and European countries, mostly all of them were atheists, and they don't have any proper religious understanding also. So even among themselves, they always believed in eating meat, intoxication, and all those things, even if they had some religious principles also. Particularly on some occasions, they drink wine also. But Srila Prabhupada actually went to all those places, taught to everyone what religion means, and then he made disciples from various countries who all became pure devotees. And we should consider ourselves to be fortunate at this time that we have come from a parampara succession, where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, Nityananda Prabhu appeared. They're all very merciful personalities, and they all appeared to make us devotees of the Lord, by which one can be delivered from this material world. So we take a step-by-step process of hearing, chanting, and so forth. That's how we advance in spiritual life. So the point is that even if one is born in a lower class, he can be raised to a higher platform by taking up the association of pure devotees. So it is a science. In fact, if you look at right from marriage to uh, up to the death, the whole process is a scientific process, starting from Garbhadana Samskara, then you have marriage, then for child you have different samskaras like piercing the ears, then you have samskaras for giving knowledge, for giving them knowledge, and all the way even up to the time of death. Different samskaras. But if one takes up to the process of Krishna consciousness, then automatically he crosses all those impediments, and one can take up to the path of devotional service straight away and become a devotee of the Lord. One example is given that even of in the recent past, a temple was constructed in Abu Dhabi, and it is said that there was a lot of new devotees who are coming to take up the process of Krishna consciousness. So this is how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given opportunities for everyone to take up this Krishna consciousness. So Srimad Bhagavatam explains also about how different marriages are compatible and different marriages are incompatible. How if marriage is not conducted within the proper levels, sometimes there can be demoniac mentality children who can be a cause of disturbance in the society. We'll go through some of the examples. Uh, Now, when a Garbhadhana samskara is not performed, then it is said that even if someone is born in a Brahmana family or a Kshatriya family or a Vaishya family, he can be considered only as a Shudra. The real intelligence is not getting qualified as a MTech or MBA and so forth, but understanding spiritual knowledge and applying it in our day-to-day life, by which one is focused on what is a real goal of life in human form of life. So opportunity to continue devotional service in aristocratic families or good family backgrounds or devotee background is given so that one can continue the devotional service what one has completed done in the previous life. So what all other qualifications are all called Shilpa Vidya, which has no meaning, because one may attain all those qualifications, but we see that even today, many who have come out of engineering colleges and all, they are hunting for jobs. There may be many unqualified people who actually may be having a good job, but there are many qualified people who don't have a decent job. So there is a lot, it's a very finer science. Uh, there's a lot to do with the loss of karma and so forth. So undertaking definitely a higher qualification materially has no sense, at least today in the material world. So the Lord does not stop one from uh, having a child, but the Lord has given a science for that, which is what is called Garbhadhana Samskara, which is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Also, one can have a union, a man can have a union with a woman to create progeny. Progeny means who become devotees of the Lord. Otherwise, if it is a union for sense gratification, then what happens is that we will have many children who become disturbance in the societies. So these samskaras are given for purification of our existence. And when people follow these samskaras, then they have a good population. And it is because people don't understand the value of samskaras, we have a lot of population which are a disturbance in the society. If you look at today situation, there are many children, uh, right from the time that children are sent to the schools or even to the colleges, uh, there is a lot of promotion for sense gratification, to starting with study more, study more, study more, so that you can get a better job, get more money, and then enjoy the life. This is what the schools are promoting. But that is not what is the real goal of life. So there are many people who are in the Vaishya background. They have not undergone studies, but they are well off. So it is not that one has to necessarily understand this Shilpa Vidya, but one has to understand the spiritual life, which is very important. Now, uh, we will go through a little bit of this Garbhana Samskara. These samskaras basically drive away the evil influences and attract the blessings of the sages and great demigods. Human life actually requires a lot of cultivation and refinement, and man just left to himself becomes a crude animal. But if he goes through this process of samskaras, they are protected and they become very cultured. which we see that many people who are born in high class families also, they take to bad habits like drinking and so forth because they have not developed a culture, even though born in high grade families. So that is why it is said that people born in this age are mostly Shudras, who may not have Brahmanas. This Garbhadana Samskar is supposed to be meant to be performed by qualified Brahmanas, which we don't have. Now, these samskaras are given by the Lord Himself so that we can spiritually advance and uh, uh, go back to our spiritual world. But in the age of Kali, we don't have such Brahmanas who can engage in this. But still, the Lord has given an easy process by chanting, taking up the Krishna consciousness. One can progress, and this can be a practice right from the time of birth all the way up to the time one leaves the body. That means if one takes up the Krishna consciousness, one can definitely have progeny who will be devotees of the Lord, and they will deliver themselves also, and they will deliver their forefathers and generations also. This is the special feature of this bhakti yoga. So in this age, whatever one does will not have any effect. Only means of deliverance is chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So it is said that there are two types of birth uh, that one goes through. One is through the Garbhatana Samskara, by the Garbhatana Samskara to the uh, um, womb of this mother. That means the first birth is by parents, but then there is second birth, which is more important, that is by being initiated by a bona fide guru. So when one gets initiated, it is known as the second birth, which is the real birth, because the first birth is by parent, and up, up to a certain age, the parents take care of the children, but then thereafter, one requires a bona fide guru to take care of the children. And that is why it is a real birth, which is called the second birth. Of course, not that the first birth is not important, first birth is also important, but more than that, the second birth is important. So there are examples in Srimad Bhagavatam. Uh, Now, the most important point before we go to the example is the mental condition of both the parents at the time of their union. If the mental state is good and spiritually placed, the child that will be born will be spiritually well placed. But if the mental condition is filled with lust, anger, greed, envy, and so forth, the children who are born out of that union will also be having the same qualification as the parents, and they will have the same lust, greed, anger, envy, and all these bad qualities, which is one of the reason we find that most of the children today, even by the time before they grow up also, they have these bad qualities. There was an article in some time back that girls attain their maturity at 10 years or 12 years or something like that, which was not there in the previous years. Similarly, in the yester years, the marriage was conducted at very early age so that both the husband and wife, they develop an attraction or attachment to each other. And that uh, process let them live until the end uh, with being together. But now, if we see the marriages take place post 25 or even 30 or 35, with the result, what happens is that children are born also late. And by the time the parents retire, children are still studying. And because the samskaras are not done, the children are also exposed to schools and colleges which promotes uh, lust and all those more of material desires. That is why there is a whole chaos in the society. So that is why the mental framework at the time of union is very, very important. And some examples we will understand. Now, if we see in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's an example how Kashyapa Muni, he was in deep meditation. At that time, Diti wanted to have union with him, and she started speaking very pleasing words. And Kashyapa Muni actually asked Diti to wait for some time because he was practicing meditation on the Supreme Lord. He asked Diti to wait for some time till having union with her. But at that time, Diti was carried, and he also mentioned that the time is not auspicious because this is the time when ghosts and spirits they wander around. But Diti was carried away so much by her lusty desire that literally she caught hold of Kashyapa Muni's clothing, and Bhagavatam mentions that she caught hold of his cloth just like a shameless public prostitute. So ultimately, first Kashyapa Muni tried to pacify her, but then her lust was so she was so lusty that she could not have sense control. Finally, Kashyapa Muni had no other option but to surrender to his fate, and finally he was obliged to perform that act to please her. And the process, what happened was that Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu were born, who were a nuisance in the society, and finally they were so demoniac that the Lord had to kill both Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. So the Shastras explain as to see how we see the world is today full of Hiranyakshas and Hiranyakashipus because the parents do not understand the importance of Garbhadana Samskara, and children who are born out of such physical union are also demoniac in nature because the parents are not aware. The parents are demoniac, so the children will also be demoniac. That is why all these injunctions were given by the Lord Himself to purify our existence. It is said that a union between a man and a woman is not a physical union, but it is a spiritual union. And that happens if the heart is clean. The purity of the semen determines the purity of the child. So if the semen is pure, then the child also becomes good or sattvic in nature and becomes a very intelligent person, both materially and spiritually. And the purity of the heart is what determines the purity of the semen. That means if our heart is filled with lust, anger, greed, envy, and so forth, all bad qualities, our semen is also filled with all those bad qualities. And in the process, and there is no artificial means to achieve this purification. The only way is to get into spiritual consciousness. And in this Kali Yuga, there is no other means but to chant the holy name of the Lord. So our acharyas also explained that before a man and a woman joins, or before devotees join together in union, they should chant at least 64 rounds by which their heart is purified, which is true. Because we don't practice, what happens is that our mind is contaminated, and at the time of union, the same contamination takes place, and the same contamination comes to the child also. Bhagavad Gita also explains that uh, the consciousness of a person is very important, not only at the time of leaving the body, but it is also important that the consciousness is perfect at the time of birth. So that means if the parent's consciousness uh, placed properly or rightly situated without these without these anarthas, then the child that is born will be also a great devotee of the Lord, and the child will also be intelligent both materially and spiritually. We look at some of the examples. Now, one example is Rasikananda. It is said that Rasikananda was the son of two Brahmanas, Achyuta and Bhavani. So even when he was in the womb of his mother, he had the fortune of hearing Krishna Katha. We see that even in Mahabharata, Abhimanyu had the opportunity to hear Mahabharata, to hear Krishna Katha. So Sarisikananda had this opportunity because he was born in a great Brahmana family. And it is said at the time of his name-giving ceremony, uh, he was given so many things like uh, grains, gold, Bhagavatam, etc. But at that age itself, this samskara also used to be done at a very early age. But Rasikananda actually picked up Srimad Bhagavatam and he embraced it and started to cry. The tears were started coming out of his eyes. And then everyone around, they realized that he's going to be a great devotee of the Lord. And he said that even at a very young age, he would perform kirtan along with Sankirtan along with other boys all around the town and make them dance. So he would chant 100,000 names a day. And during his study days, it is said that he would read only once and analyze anything that was given to him. and he was able to analyze a sutra after hearing once. So the point was he was very intelligent in every respect. That is because when he was in the womb of his mother, he heard a lot of Krishna Katha. And even after growing up, they said that he would hear Srimad Bhagavatam from a devotee called Jagannath Mishra every day. And then thereafter, he met another devotee called Dubey, with whom he would discuss Srimad Bhagavatam. And it is said that one time that when he reached the 10th canto, when he heard the pastime of Lord Krishna with the gopis, and Lord Krishna in the midst of the Rasarans left the gopis, and then he was surprised, how come the Lord can leave them and go? So when he heard this pastime, it is said that he fell unconscious, and he went to a forest of wild animals for about 7 days. And he started crying, saying that, "Oh Lord, why are you so cruel to the gopis? They have left their home and everything come to you to remain like a shadow for you, but you have left them, but still they are thinking of you constantly, even in their sleep." So seeing this distress, it is said that Dubey made a commentary called Bhagavatamrita, where he mentioned that Krishna came back to Vraja. And then Rasika also, when he who lost his consciousness, came back to his consciousness. So that was the consciousness of Rasikananda, who was a great devotee of the Lord right from his birth. Another example that we can take is that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. He was born in a very healthy family. His material name was Kedarnatha. His maternal grandfather was a great devotee of the Lord, and he had a lot of affection for his grandfather. So this way, he imbibed a lot of good qualities, and he had a lot of feeling for the Lord. In fact, in the yesteryears, if we see, there used to be joint families where children had an opportunity uh, to hear Krishna Katha, either Krishna's pastimes or Rama's pastimes, right from our childhood, when grandmas and grandpas used to narrate these stories. But then, over a period of time, the joint families got shifted to nuclear families, and now the children have no opportunity to get such association, with the result that they are right from the nursery, they are in the schools, and thereafter they are in so many other homes where they don't get the association of their parents. So that is why if you see all these scriptures like Ramayana, Mahabharata, Quran, Bible, they are all given by the Lord. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura was very well versed in all the scriptures like Ramayana, Mahabharata. And at 9, it is said he started his research work in astrology, but later gave it up. At 10, it is said he was a great scholar in all the scriptures. He would engage with adults in debates and uh, defeat them in discussion with his strength in philosophy. Another example is about Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the guru of our founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. He appeared as the son of Srila Sachidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakura. It is said in his childhood, he mastered all the Vedas, memorized all the slokas of Bhagavad Gita, and relished his father's philosophical works. He also came to be known as the living encyclopedia for his vast knowledge. So this is how devotees take birth in devotees' families when they take up to the right process. Srila Prabhupada is also one of them. And I'll give a quote of some of those quotes. Srila Prabhupada always used to quote, children can be born either as putra or mutra, and both come from the same source. And then he said that a son should be born as a putra, not as a mutra. So it's very clear. I don't want to elaborate on this. Another quote by Chanakya Pandita, which Srila Prabhupada always quotes, is that what is the value of a son who is neither learned nor religious? Such a son is compared to a blind eye that is only a source of pain. So if someone has an eye, or someone is blind, he's not able to see, he is always in trouble, and it's more painful for him because he's not able to see. So in this quote, it is said that what is the value of a son, having a son who is not learned either materially and nor is he religious minded. Of course, in the current trend, we see that nowadays the trend is that uh, married families don't want to have child at all because they think, what is the use of having a child? They feel that a child is an interference in their sense gratification. Uh, and still worse than that is that we see that today uh, many men and women live in apartments as a living. That means they don't get married, but they live together. And then if they are satisfied, they feel that they can marry, they marry, which also many times end in divorces. And many times marriage does not take place. They just live as it is, like which Srila Prabhupada compares them to like life of cats and dogs, because they don't have a concept. Animals don't have a concept of marriage, but human beings have been given a system to have a marriage, and then samskaras like Garbhadana and samskar. One example is in Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th canto, where it is said where that when the Lord appeared as Vamanadev, the citizens performed all the samskaras. The parents performed all the samskaras like Jata Karma, sacred train ceremony, and so forth. And at the sacred ceremony of Vaman Dev, the sun god personally uttered the Gayatri mantra. Brihaspati offered the sacred thread, and Kashyapa Muni offered a straw belt. Mother Earth gave him a deer skin, and the demigod of the moon, who is the king of the forest, gave him a Brahmadanda, or the rod of a brahmachari. His mother Aditi gave him cloth for underwear, and the deity presiding over the heavenly kingdom offered him an umbrella. Lord Brahma offered a water pot to the inexhaustible personality of Godhead. The seven sages offered him pusa grass, and Mother Saraswati gave him a string of Rudraksha beads. Kuvera, king of the Yakshas, gave him a pot of begging alms, and Mother Bhagavati, the wife of Lord Shiva and most chaste mother of the entire universe, gave him his first alms. So this is how when Lord appeared as Vamanadev, the entire section, right from their parents to all the demigods, they all gave different things to Vamanadev because he was born as a Brahmana and as a Brahmachari. So this is one example. It is said also that Garga Muni performed all the rituals for both Lord Krishna and Lord Balarama. Another example is that about when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's sacred text ceremony was being performed, Jagannath Mishra invited all the friends, relatives, etc. The women uh, who were invited, they all chanted Krishna's glories. The musicians played their instruments, and there were brahmanas. There were many brahmanas who recited the Vedic mantras and then blessed the child with very nice prayers. Then, with a stick in his hand and a bag on his shoulder, Gaurasundara went around begging alms from many houses. This was a ritual because when someone undergoes the thread ceremony, the system was that he would go around and beg for alms. And the wives of great demigod like Lord Shiva, Brahma, they all took the form of Brahmanas, wives, and gave alms to Namai, which he accepted. There are some examples. There is a quote in 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam which says, for brahmacharis and sannyasis, there are strong restrictions on sexual indulgence. Similarly, there are strong restrictions for grihasthas. Grihasthas should indulge in sex life only in accordance with the order of the Guru. That means one should not have union until the Guru gives an order, because the Guru foresees the right time, place, and circumstances and gives instructions. Therefore, it is mentioned here that one must follow the orders of the spiritual master, which generally we don't do. The other quote is that the Grihastha is allowed to indulge in sex life during the period favorable for procreation and in accordance with the spiritual master's order. So the spiritual master knows what is the favorable time for procreation. If the spiritual master orders allow a Grihastha to engage in sex life at a particular time, then the Grihastha may do so. Otherwise, if the spiritual master orders against it, the Grihastha should abstain. The Grihastha must obtain permission from the spiritual master to observe a ritualistic ceremony of Garbhadana Samskara. That means before union, Garbhadana Samskara has to be performed, for which also one has to take permission from the spiritual master. Once the spiritual master sanctions, then he may approach his wife to get children in a proper mood, proper framework. Also, there is mentioned that the Brahmana generally remains a Brahmana throughout his life, but although some Brahmanas become Grihasthas, but they do so under the instructions of the spiritual master. Now, The Kshatriyas are allowed to marry more than one wife, but that also must be in accordance with the instructions of their spiritual master. They cannot marry many times to indulge in sex life. There is also a quote in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which describes about the birth of Vidura. Vidura was born in a Shudra family, but he was a great devotee of the Lord, being a son of Vyasadeva. So, though he was born in a Shudra family, he was given the chance to take birth from the semen of Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva is none other than the empowered incarnation of the Lord itself. So that is why it is said that the birth of a human being is a great science. It is a science, not something artificial. And the reformation of that act is what is called Garbhadhan Samskara. The problem is not to check the control of the growth of population, but to generate good population of the personalities like Vidura, Vyasa, and Maitreya. The conditions are that the husband should be disciplined in religious practices and follow the regulative principles, and the wife should be faithful to the husband. There was no, in the years, there was no chance for a girl to relate with the boy until marriage. If the engagement ceremony was there, at that time, also most of the cases, the wife's head would be covered. But there was no chance for a man and woman to even see each other before marriage. So this is how the system was. And that led to the wife being faithful to the husband. And we see that today, most of the marriages end up in divorce because they join together for marriage for the purpose of sense gratification. And once the sense gratification is over, both of them get fed up of each other and they feel that it's time to divorce and both of them get married somewhere else. So this is the current day situation. And the reason is that they don't understand the value of Garbhadhana Samskara and they don't understand the value of a marriage also. So personalities like Ravana and Hiranyakashipu were all born out of Brahmana families, but still they were not accepted as Brahmanas because their fathers did not follow the regulative principle for their birth. So such children like demons were born. Those days there were only a few demons, but today we see that the world is full of demons because there is no discipline in sex life. And none of these children can bring happiness in the society, which is also predicted in Srimad Bhagavatam 12th canto. And by the end of the Kali Yuga, the society will be totally disturbed because there won't be any means to have food. People will be not having water to drink. They will have no food to eat. And the mothers would survive themselves by killing their own children because there won't be any food. This is because due to lack of understanding of the scriptures and not following the scriptural injunctions. So in the case of Vena, we see that he was a cruel child right from the beginning. And finally, the sages ordered him to be killed and they killed him. And now from now on, we will see how they continue the progeny thereafter. And Prithu Maharaj, who is also an incarnation of the Lord, appears in that family. With this, I conclude the class for the day. Any of you have got any questions, any comments, they can ask me.
Krishna Prabhu.
Hare
Thanks
Krishna
for
Prabhu.
that explanation, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Quick question.
Yeah.
In the story of Meena, we see that, he was a cruel child or, he was
Yeah.
not the right, this one. So
Yes.
I would say this fame or defame goes to parents because his parents were, again, very good.
Yes. Now that
How do
comes
we
to
understand it? That's all.
Yes, I'll come to that point. When you're talking about his parents, King Anga was a great devotee of the Lord. But at that time, it was an arrangement by the Lord himself that King Vena would become attached to the family and the Lord wanted him to become detached. So the Lord arranged his marriage to Sunita, who was the daughter of Mrityu, death personified. So she was also it is said that a son takes qualities of his mother, and a daughter takes qualities of father. So it was the arrangement by the Lord itself to create detachment from him. So King Anga went to the forest and he left to the spiritual world. But that uh, union between them had, and the result of that union was Vena, who was cruel right from the time of the birth. So when he was cruel at that time, there was nobody else to rule. So the sages installed him thinking that he would become reformed. But somehow it didn't happen, but it gave the opposite results. So they thought that the best thing is to kill him, and they killed him. And further, there is a process. They churned his legs and so forth. And the next generation come forth, and they all take birth as devotees of the Lord. So sometimes these examples are given in Srimad Bhagavatam for us to understand. Uh, for example, even when I got married, I never knew there is something called, I took marriage as a very casual affair. But after going through Srimad Bhagavatam, we understand how scientific it is and how people those days used to follow all these practices, even if they were not Krishna conscious. And people still lived a peaceful life because they were at least in the mode of goodness. But now we see that people are mostly in the mode of passion and mode of ignorance. So the Lord's arrangement sometimes takes place which we cannot know. So we can only understand through the examples of Srimad Bhagavatam. Like, for example, I mentioned about Kashyapa and Diti in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Kashyapa was a great devotee of the Lord. So through Diti, demons were born, and through Aditi, devotees were born who are all demigods. So from these, we should understand the process, how it works, and try to practice in our life.
Thank you, Prabhu. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments? Thank you all very much. Gata Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.